Minerals are the fuel for all life. You have to bring all the minerals in from the outside to fuel the energy that drives all of the functions in your body. It was Linus Pauling who said, if you track every disease and illness down to its source, you'll find a mineral problem.
So, Caroline, we were having a little quick discussion before we hopped on and talking about how we often get to this time period of life at perimenopause and menopause, and we're often depleted, completely depleted, not only because of our requirements of life, but our lifestyle and the things that we eat and everything else. And you made a reference that you yourself had kind of gone through this. I'd love to hear your story because I think when people hear our stories, they see themselves in that, like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. So tell me about yours because I think it's an interesting story that everybody would love to hear.
Yeah, so I grew up, I had an autoimmune condition growing up. I also had a really severe gluten intolerance. I was never tested for celiac, but clearly very severe. I also had a really bad mold exposure event in my life. And throughout my life, I really struggled. I'm sorry. The other thing that's really important to note is that I have really, from a genetic standpoint, I have really bad detoxification pathways. So that makes me an incredible sensitivo to any smells, any toxins in my body, and I freak out. I'll get a headache immediately. Historically, okay. So my system was very sensitive, and then on top of that, I had two children, which the thing I want people to understand is that when you have a child, all of the structure of that baby is created by taking nutrients and minerals from your body. And so that was really the event that took me deeper into a depletion that made it really impossible for me to continue in my intense corporate career. So at that time, I had flatlined adrenals. They'd been flatlined for over a year. I do have Hashimoto's. I had really bad inflammation in my gut with just bloating and elimination issues, bad inflammation in my mouth with very bad gingivitis and bone loss in my teeth. I had recurring sinus infections every 4 to 6 weeks, and I did not sleep through the night. I would wake up 3, 4, 5 times a night. And this was really right when I was starting, the tail end of perimenopause into menopause. So I was really struggling. And it was at this time that I was introduced to plant-based minerals. Now, I had no idea that my symptoms might have any connection to mineral depletion. I've been to many, many different practitioners. You name it, I've been to them trying to heal each one of these problems one by one. Of course, spent lots of money on that as well because we know insurance doesn't cover lots of alternative things. So I started taking these minerals, and they were liquid minerals like our beam minerals. And within 2 months, I went to my dentist and she looked in my mouth. She was amazed. All of the tissues were pink and healthy. I had had my teeth cleaned without any pain or without any bleeding. This was amazing because literally I'd been to 3 different dentists trying to heal my mouth. Then my sinus infections didn't come again. And then 4 months in, I went to my naturopath. At my last appointment, she had suggested I take hydrocortisone, which I wasn't going to do. And so they were 1/3 of the way up the chart. She was like, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I think maybe it's these minerals. Kept taking them over the space of 8 or 9 months. All of the symptoms that I described to you just resolved. And I was left with this intense curiosity, which led me on, down the rabbit hole into my interest in minerals.
Wow. You think about it. So like vitamin science was really driven by, Linus Pauling. Let's look at, like he, so vitamins get a lot of attention, but the reality is minerals do not, or we hand select minerals. Like, I don't know if you saw the recent study looking at lithium and Alzheimer's. So the depletion of lithium might be part of the sort of prognosis and activity in Alzheimer's. And so, I think just like vitamins, I think minerals are due their day. But then I think also because we tend to compartmentalize, we start to look at them in their individual components, but not looking at them as a system of need, right? So I'd like for you to talk about that because you have a lot that you say specifically about that that gets misinterpreted in the medical community.
Yes. And it was Linus Pauling actually who said that you can, if you track every disease and illness down to its source, you'll find a mineral problem. So he not only studied vitamins, he also studied minerals. So there's some foundational truths that I want to help people understand so they can shift their understanding about minerals. Because most people don't really know anything about minerals. I certainly didn't. I maybe knew about zinc because, during the pandemic, people mentioned it. And I knew about magnesium because I had a cramp once and there was a spray, or, things like that, right? Or there were the electrolytes, because when we did keto, we all used electrolytes, things like that. So, what I learned when I went down the rabbit hole is, first of all, that the entire universe, including your body, is made of minerals. Minerals are the structural elements of everything in the universe. Secondly, minerals are the fuel for all life. So minerals and amino acids, your body makes minerals. It makes it makes amino acids. It makes no minerals. So you have to bring all the minerals in from the outside to fuel the energy that drives all of the functions in your body, plus many, 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 up to 5,000 or more biosynthesis processes. So they're kind of like this thing that everybody missed. There's been all sorts of biohacking, all sorts of, lots of medical information studying lots of different illnesses, but nobody looked at this fundamental foundation of all life, minerals. Now, the challenge is that when minerals first started to be looked at, they were looked at by scientists who were noticing that athletes and soldiers were having issues when they were doing training, and they were crashing, and they were like, oh, these guys need electrolytes. Let's just figure out how much they need and we'll just add them. So they went in their lab and they did a lot of studies, and they came out with these things that we know of as the recommended daily allowances. And we see those percentages represented on supplemental facts panels or nutritional facts panels on food. The challenge with that is it makes us think that we can just take magnesium and add it to our body, or take potassium, or take sodium, or take zinc, or whatever, and then we can just throw it in the way you would a car, like you're going to fill up the oil tank, you're going to fill up the windshield washer fluid or the gas. But the problem is minerals are ecosystem tools. They don't work alone. They work in incredibly complex, balanced ratios, and they have to be in those balanced ratios for them to work properly.
I think that's so, so very important, because medicine likes to be super reductionist. Just like, okay, we're going to talk about bone health. We're just going to talk about calcium and magnesium, forgetting that boron and all these other minerals play a role. And I think the other thing too, I think there's this perception that we have plenty of minerals in our food. There's like this, underlying, well, there's not a problem there. We got, we're good. And it's, if anything, furthest from the truth.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing. When you think about, again, this is where I like people to really get it at the foundational level. So where do minerals come from? They come from the earth. They come from the earth. So when a plant grows, the way that it creates all of its structure, because all structure is minerals, is by pulling those minerals from the soil. So when you grow plants in soil over and over and over again, you're taking minerals from that soil. In nature, a plant grows, ultimately it dies, it falls, and it decomposes, and it delivers its mineral content back into the soil. But we have broken what I call that the sustainable loop that nature relies on, and we've broken that because we cultivate and we take the food away. We don't ever put that mineral I mean, you do in your backyard garden maybe, but mostly in production farming, they are not doing that. So the soil is extremely depleted. It's been a problem since the 1930s when there was a special session of Congress focused on mineral depletion in the soils. And what has been done about it since then? Very, very little. Yeah. And plus, we're all in the US. I was just in Europe, and I noticed when you go to buy water in the stores, there is only spring water. There is no distilled water. There's no filtered water. It's all spring water. So that means they're getting a lot more minerals than we are because we drink, reverse osmosis water that we have in our, or we use filtered water from even your Brita filter, takes out the minerals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, especially when you look at monoculture farming and the depletion of the soil, and then, agribusiness says, well, we'll just add synthetic nitrogen and all this other stuff to the soil so we can keep growing stuff. So not only are we depleting the soil, but we're also adding basically crap to the soil. And then we wonder why we have such a health problem in the United States.
And in fact, there's even studies been done showing the nutrient density of foods grown in the 1950s compared to modern food. And there's much less protein, much less minerals, much less vitamins, and higher carbohydrate content. So it's very interesting. So the nitrates they make the plants grow large, but they're less nutrient dense. So the problem is we're all mineral deficient. And now the interesting thing is we have this huge rise. Practitioners, I'm sure you know this, you experience this, so practitioners come not with one or two, but three or more chronic symptoms like I had. I had 5 or 6 really intense chronic symptoms that were affecting my life. And just by adding minerals, changing nothing else, I changed nothing else, things started to shift.
Yeah. No, we have an epidemic of chronic disease. I mean, obviously the most physically noticeable is the obesity epidemic. But honestly, if you were to add the really complex health conditions like autoimmunity, mast cell activation, allergies, atopy, diabetes, which is part of that metabolic syndrome, those diseases they lead to obviously shorter lifespan, but a lot of chronic disease management. And if somebody's in the conventional model, it's debilitating, right? Because of our treatment pathway. And so I think it's important that, as practitioners, our world does a good job of helping people understand the full breadth of what's going on. Because I also think that in our world, we get very enamored. I've been in it 20 years, and I will say over the years, I've been enamored with different things and sort of shifted my attention and focus as I learned more, and especially after my PhD. But we're quick to do elimination diets and eliminate this and eliminate that. But then we have to think about what else we might be eliminating while we're doing that, right? Or what's already depleted on top of that. So let's get into the composition of minerals and where they're from and how they're utilized, and the importance of what's unique about fulvic and humic, and particularly processing of those things, because again, there's a lot out there in the marketplace and they're not all equal.
Yeah, yeah. So the shift that I want people to do with minerals in particular is that minerals, it's not about quantity, because you can take 1,000 milligrams of magnesium and only like 5% of that is ever going to actually get utilized by your body. And the rest has to be eliminated. So you get really expensive urine. Okay. um, so when you're thinking about minerals, what you want to ask yourself is how bioavailable, meaning how easily is it going to digest, break down in your gut? How easily is it going to be absorbed into your bloodstream through the lining of your gut? And how easily is it going to be assimilated, which means traveled into your cells? Because most minerals do their job inside your cells. That's where your mitochondria live, and the mitochondria utilize minerals for energy generation in your body. So, since most of us are mineral deficient, it's literally the reason we have so many chronic symptoms is because our bodies cannot produce enough energy. It's about 1,200 watts of electricity that a fully mineralized body can produce in a day, but maybe we're producing 800, 600. Now what happens is the body has to pick and choose. It says, well, hair, that's not really important. Oh, those nails, whatever, oh, the skin, we'll just kind of keep it intact. That inflammation in your gut or that inflammation, that bacteria, that's causing that problem. We don't have enough energy to remove it. So we'll just keep the infection at a low level, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens is, and as depending on the person, where their weaknesses are, that's where those things will start. So maybe it's sleep for somebody. Even sleep. How people are like, how can sleep be about mineral deficiency? So here's what I want people to understand. Think about your cells. You've got about 37 to 70 trillion cells in your body, and every cell absolutely has to have minerals to operate effectively. It will operate at a low level without, but not for very long. Okay. So what happens is the cells are sending a neurological information to your body saying, I need something, I need something, I need something. And that is going to amp your whole nervous system up. It creates anxiety, it creates panic, makes it hard to sleep. I've had insomnia all my life until I got mineral replenished. Now I go traveling wherever, I sleep through the night. It's a miracle for me because I know what it means to not be able to sleep or to be able to get to sleep. Even something like, obesity, it's an ecosystem issue. And when you're dealing with ecosystem issues, you have to go to the lowest common denominator, and that's those minerals, that foundational element. Because again, even though you think you're overweight, you're still hungry, you still feel that need to eat. That's your cells saying, look, you're overfed, but you're undernourished. So, yeah.
Ladies, if you're noticing more fine lines and wrinkles, it's not just about aging, it's about the loss of estrogen. And that affects our skin structure, making it drier, thinner, less firm. But here's the great news: I've created Biased Mastery Cream to help. This luxurious bioidentical estrogen cream supports your natural hydration and elasticity. It's packed with nourishing oils like olive, jojoba, aloe, and coconut, so it feels amazing and helps soften those lines and bring back that healthy glow. I've been using it, and let me tell you, my skin has never looked or felt better. It's smoother, more radiant, and those little cracks and creases are way less noticeable. If you're ready to give your skin some extra love, check out Buy Est Mastery on the Metabolic Blueprint website. And that's metabolicblueprint.com/Biest Mastery. That's BIEST Mastery, MASTERY. And your face will thank you.
Absolutely.
So I'd like for you to also clarify, because I would say, especially my listeners are very aware. So they're trying to eat organic, biodiverse, or, eat local, all those things. If they aren't, I hope they are. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting any more mineral balance.
Right. That's the problem, is that even organic production farming is depleting the soil. And I will say that lots of regenerative farmers are using these natural substances called fulvic and humic to get minerals back in the soil. See, here's the cool thing, is that because all cellular life on Earth requires minerals to function, nature solved the problem of getting minerals into cells, and it created these natural substances called humic and fulvic. Humic and fulvic are these pre-formulated molecules. They're formulated in the same ratios of minerals that your body utilizes. So isn't that amazing? Of course, since all cells, and here's the thing, is like that your cells need the same ratio of minerals that a California redwood cell needs, that a coyote needs. Like we all use the same at this very fundamental cellular level. We use the same ratios. Isn't it interesting?
That is interesting. I guess it's because we're a multi-cell unit, right? So compared to a
No,
single cell
yes.
organism. Yeah. Okay.
Now, of
I did
course,
not know
an
that.
athlete is going to use more magnesium and some of those macro minerals because they're putting out a lot of energy all the time, or using a lot of energy all the time, more so than somebody who has a very sedentary lifestyle. So they might use more, but they still need them in those same natural ratios. So nature solved the problem. It created, so rather than those scientists who went into the lab and tried to formulate this based on their scientific studies, if they'd actually looked at how ecosystems work, they would have actually found the answer, because humic and fulvic are the solution that nature developed for replenishing minerals into cells.
So I want you to clarify because there's humic and fulvic, the compounds, humic and fulvic acid, and then humic and fulvic biomass, and they are different, although most people don't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So humic and fulvic come from materials that actually are decomposed ancient rainforests. 65 million years ago, uh, the Earth was covered with rainforests. Meteor hit the Earth, killed 75% of all life on Earth in a few hours. And all of these rainforests around the Earth died and decomposed, and they deposited all of their mineral richness into substances in the Earth. In the Himalayas, we have something called shilajit. It's a tar-like substance. In the British Isles, we have something called peat. It's a clumpy soil material that's found in bogs. In South America, they have something called terra preta, and here in the North America, we have a few different materials: humate, leonardite. There's a few others. This is what we use in our products. It's a black, crystalline, incredibly mineral-rich substance. Now, what makes a humic acid is if you take that substance and you use hydrochloric acid to extract humic and fulvic, then you end up with an acid. Not a bad thing. You've got hydrochloric acid in your stomach. It's fine, but it tastes horrific. If you've ever tried to drink colloidal minerals, because colloidal minerals are acids.
yeah, they're nasty
Okay.
tasting.
Yeah.
They are.
So it's not a bad thing. They're used a lot in agriculture. They use humic and fulvic acid in regen farming a lot. So they're fantastic tools. They do the same things that the humic and fulvic complexes that we extract using a water-based method. But the beautiful thing is ours are really easy to ingest because they taste like water.
Yeah, yeah, they don't taste anything like the ionic and liquid minerals that you often get, you know. So, I you look at that and you go, okay, so obviously we have this depletion of minerals and we move, the food away from the soil. So and we're not doing crop rotation unless we're doing regenerative farming and things like that. If we can continue going the direction we're going, I'm just curious about this. Because even the organic farms, right? So 20 years ago, we had small organic farms, and then guess who? They all came in and bought them up, and now they do the same kind of farming as conventional, but they just don't spray it with a bunch of pesticides, right? So we're doing the same behavioral things, and so organic food's not really that much better, other than the lack of pesticides, which is always good. But what do you see, knowing what you know about minerals and the soil and other things? Because other countries are adopting our same food production behaviors, whether it's animal farming or farming in general. Like it's just going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, this is a worldwide issue. In fact, so much so that the World Health Organization coined a term for it, and it's called the hidden hunger. The hidden hunger is micronutrient deficiency in your body. And it's like something's missing. You feel like, oh, after a dinner, you're like opening up the fridge again, or, mid-afternoon, you're like, oh, I just need something. Oh, I just need something. You know, that's the hidden hunger. So the interesting and what I say is I will take our minerals for the rest of my life because what I know is that there is no way to get enough minerals from the foods we eat anymore. And I'm sorry, but it is just the fact. Um, Even if you grow in your backyard garden, you could do it. I mean, even if you did that, you still wouldn't be able to ever, I mean, unless you eat a ton, you would have to eat so much. And none of us really want to eat that much to get all the minerals we need. So the easiest way is to, just replenish, and that's different from supplementation. So, and this is one of the big things I want people to understand. Supplementation is just adding stuff to your system. Most of it goes through and washes through. Replenishment is actually using the tools that act where so that those minerals are actually going to be absorbed and assimilated into your cells. Most supplements, mineral supplements, if you go and buy a, you know, pill, I've spent a lot of time in the aisles at um, health food stores talking to people who are buying minerals because I wanted to know, like, what do they know? Like, what are they getting? How do they know what to get? And mostly they have no idea. They're just like, oh, my sister said I needed this, or mom said, my trainer said, and they got like 5 or 6 pill bottles, and they're going to go home and try and take, like 12 pills a day. And most of that is just going to wash through. And it's also creating imbalance. See, that's the thing, is that when I call replenishment is minerals that are provided in the balanced ratios so that when they go in, they're extremely bioavailable, easily absorbed, easily assimilated, so they actually make a difference in your energy and in your skin and your gut and your, all of those fundamental functions of your body.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't yeah, because I think, yeah, and I would say I'm guilty of this just like any other nutritionist. You start running a bunch of labs, you're like, "Oh, your magnesium is deficient," right? But it's, but even on standard, so for instance, people come in and they'll go, "My doctor ran a serum magnesium." Well, that's about 7% of total body magnesium. That is no indication of what your cells are doing with it. But the reality is we don't have a really good mechanism, whether it's hair, urine, blood, to really, really understand in depth how much mineral need is inside the cell.
Exactly. I mean, there are there are a few tests that do intercellular mineral levels. They'll do minerals, heavy metals, vitamin levels. Um, but the thing that I always tell people is, let's say you go get tested and you find out you're low in magnesium. What are you going to do? Okay. Are you going to go start popping, 500, 1,000 milligrams of magnesium every day? And I'm telling you, we use a test a lot. We put it in our booth when we go to trade shows. And so many people come and they find out they're low in magnesium. They're like, but I take it every day, you see. So that's the thing that you have to understand about minerals is you're not like a car and you can't just fill up the tank. If you're low in some mineral, you can't necessarily just add it because they all work together. So if you're low in magnesium, you have to say, okay, well, is there a relationship? There's a relationship with other minerals. What's happening with those other minerals? So it's it's a it's a very, very complex algorithm that not any incredibly smart practitioner or scientist or you, myself, are going to be able to solve, even ChatGPT. But the amazing, phenomenal thing is that your body can solve it if you provide the minerals in this extremely bioavailable and natural ratio formulated by nature method. Your body can do it. And that's kind of what I see. That's what happened to me, is that my body got a mineral reset. It started having everything in it needed in a very like immediately available, consistently, day after day, week after week, month after month, so that it actually started to gain momentum and come back into full ecosystem balance.
Yeah. Yeah, so you talked about the hidden hunger, right? So we talked about, like, so World Health Organization calls mineral deficiency hidden hunger. But there's also minerals are very, very important to the cell's ability to biotransform and remove toxins from the cell, right? Like we all do fancy testing and look at and all these other things, and I'm like, yeah, but there's minerals that are present in that membrane that help transport, right, and help that whole process. So talk a little bit about that. We have the cell salts, all of those things that play a role there as well.
So all the way that things move inside in and out of cells is through a process called diffusion. Okay. And the way I like to just give people a way to even understand that at all is if you it's all based on something called a concentration gradient. So if you take a pinch of salt, you put it in your glass and you see the crystals of salt on the bottom, and you come back an hour later and the whole glass is salty because those salt particles dissolved. And then via this thing called the law of the concentration gradient, that liquid solution balanced the amount of salt everywhere in that glass. And that's what's happening inside your body. It's all liquid in there. So it's like if you're in a room right now and the room is packed with people and you open a door, a whole bunch of people are going to go out because it's too crowded in there. Okay. Or if you are only one person in the room and there's a whole bunch of people out there, you open the door and people come in. This is what diffusion is like. It's things that go in and out to try and balance what's inside the cell and outside the cell. Now, this is the passive method that your body uses to balance things all over, okay? But there are also effectors. There are these tools that can make this even more, that can enhance this. And that's what humic and fulvic represent. So let's talk about fulvic first. Fulvic is a really amazing molecule. First of all, your cells recognize fulvic as a beneficial substance. So most channels that open in your cell wall, they have a gate, and it's like having a peephole in your door. You can look out and go, yeah, that's somebody I want in, I'll open the door. So let's say it's a magnesium molecule and it hits this gate and the gate goes, oh, that's magnesium, let's let it in. Well, it also recognizes fulvic. The beautiful thing about fulvic is it brings 60 times its molecular weight of minerals and nutritional elements into the cell. So it's like having a guy with a big backpack outside of your room who's going to carry in all the good stuff you need for the day and dump it out, on your desk for you. So literally a delivery system for minerals and nutrients into your cell. Now, that's while we're talking about getting things into the cell, the other part of this is humic. So humic is a different kind of molecule. It's very large relative to a cell. And one of its main things that it does is it interacts with the proteins in the cell wall, causing the cell to open more channels. So if you're in a room and you had one door and there's all those people in the door your room you want to get out, if you had three doors, you can open them all and everything can go out more easily or come in more easily. So this is called cell wall permeability. It enhances cell wall permeability. So you can imagine these two molecules working in tandem to enhance nutrient uptake into the cell. Now let's talk about how it enhances the removal of toxins from your body. So this fulvic molecule that's brought all these nutrients into the cell and it's dropped them off in there by changing its polarity. Now it moves around inside the cell and it picks up biowaste, toxins, heavy metals, viral detritus, free radicals, all sorts of other toxic substances, and carries them out of the cell. And then it changes its polarity again and it drops them in the bloodstream. Now, the humic molecule is this amazing, the people who really study this, the scientists that I've spoken with, they actually call it the God molecule because it is unlike any other molecule. It has a surface a lot like a sponge, so a huge amount of surface area. Now, most molecules have only one electrical polarity, but the humic molecule at different places on its surface area, it could be positive or negative. So it actually can gather different substances, glyphosate, heavy metals, biowaste, toxins, senescent cells, free radicals, nanoplastics, and those things will cling to it. Now, at a certain point, that molecule will get so heavy at a molecular weight, it falls out of suspension the way, a powder that you've mixed into a glass of water will fall to the bottom. So that's precipitation. It will fall out and then it will leave your body. The cool thing is it leaves your body through any elimination channel available. Your tears, your snot, your sweat, your saliva, your earwax, your skin, of course your urine and feces as well, but it doesn't require, it's not like certain detox protocols that require certain pathways to be open because it will use anyone.
Okay. So that at a very, very fundamental level, humic acid's kind of like the ultimate binder,
Exactly.
at the
I
cell
call it Mother
membrane.
Nature's, yeah,
Yeah, natural binder, right?
I call it Mother Nature's janitor.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the, because like lots of people like to talk about liver detox or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's at the liver, but every single cell must remove trash. Like we have trash buildup, like every single cell. Okay, so we talked about a lot here, the electrical charge, the differences between, ionic minerals and humic and fulvic. So tell us a little bit about Beam, because Beam again is very unique in the marketplace. Tell us specifically about the products you use, because I do use them. I was spritzing myself earlier with the spray. I got
I've
off the
got my
plane.
spray right here. I've been spraying myself all day.
Yes.
So the spray is a fulvic spray. Imagine being able to put electrolytes and minerals wherever you want them. Because that fulvic molecule is so much smaller than a cell, it absorbs through any tissue that it touches. So let's say you have a sore neck, you woke up with a crick in your neck, you just spray it on. Let's say you have menstrual cramps, you just spray it on. Let's say you have a tension headache, you just spray it on. Or maybe you have eye strain, you just spray it. I use it as a toner. It's fantastic for let's say you got sunburned or any kind of burn. You just spray it on. Cramps, any night cramps that you have in your legs, if you tend towards hand or foot cramps, you just spray it on and rub it in. And it absorbs directly through the skin into the muscle in like 3 to 5 seconds. It's that quick. So incredibly, this is my favorite product probably. Then we have Electrolyze. So Electrolyze is also a fulvic, but this is for drinking. So you would drink this. This is like a tool. So instead of salt-based electrolytes, which are these megadose minerals that are going to create imbalance in your gut, you just use this as your electrolyte replenisher. One full cap of this in a bottle of water is like strong enough for a training run if you're an elite athlete. Okay. Like that's all you need. And it's not made from salts. So it doesn't cause the osmotic or the salt imbalances that can result in your gut from using regular salt-based or using salt-based electrolytes regularly.
Yeah,
So
because those
that's
can cause intestinal distress and things like that if you get too much and you throw that off. You
Yeah,
know?
I speak with athletes all the time who come to me with gut distress from using salt-based electrolytes regularly. I've even had trainers come to me with their older athletes struggling with osteopenia and osteoporosis because when you put a lot of magnesium, potassium in your gut regularly like that, your body has to balance those with phosphorus and calcium, which it gets from your bones and your teeth. You see, so you really don't want to use those in an emergency situation, great, once in a while, but not on a regular basis. Yeah. So then the other one is the humic product, and that one is this microboost. So microboost is that binder, incredible tool for continual detoxification of your system. Even if you're doing a detox protocol, as soon as you finish that protocol, you're again encountering environmental toxins. So this is your tool for constant, continuous detox. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I love them. I've used both. I like I said, I was on a plane this morning and I got off the plane. I was like, I was hitting myself with the spray. I was like, and the other thing I notice when I do the spray, just it helps me feel kind of picked up because I didn't sleep very well last night and I was left for the airport at 4 a.m. So I love it.
Yeah, it's a great particularly the fulvic, the electrolyze is just an incredible pick me up. If I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling just a little like my system is there's being Sorry.
Tax. Yeah. Tax.
Like
I like
people
to
are
call it
asking a
tax.
lot of I'm asking a lot of my system, I'll just take some extra electrolytes. Apparently, I need some right now.
I can tell you right now, I know I need some. And actually what I do, what I do, because you can obviously put it in anything, so it tastes like water. I put it in my morning coffee because coffee is depleting anyway. So I'm like, well, I know I'm gonna drink my coffee, so it's
It's a
part of
great
my
way to get
mixture,
it's
you
so
know?
true, and it's also great for kids, if you have kids and you're struggling with getting them to get all the nutrition they need, it's the easiest thing to add it into their water, just an incredible and most kids, once they actually know what it is and it tastes like water, they won't even reject it, so
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. So where do you see your products going? Are you staying with the same product suite, or do you have new things that you're thinking about as you go forward? Because obviously we've got a major mineral problem on the planet.
yes, yes. Our goal is, I mean, we jokingly say we want to remineralize humanity, but we really we we have two kind of goals that we're working on. One is we want to get minerals into as many people as possible so that this rise in chronic conditions starts to level and go down. And again, the obesity issue, we see that as an ecosystem imbalance issue. And if we can provide that foundational support, it's like that whole image of all the boats coming off the sand at the same time as the tide comes in. So that's our first. And the second is to really bring this information. So thank you for having me on the show because I want to help people understand minerals. It's not going to help you to go down to the health food store and buy 6 bottles of pills. You're not going to feel the difference. They're not very bioavailable, and you're just going to be flushing your money down the drain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up kind of the obesity thing, and if you really think about it, if our hunger, again, we think of hunger as just a drive, like an emotional drive or other things, but we have to remember that our biology will request things of us to try and get its needs met, whether it's vitamins, minerals, and usually it's all of it, right? And that, maybe because excess weight is a side effect of the problem. It is not the problem. It is a side effect of the problem. And, and particularly all the stats on the ultra processed foods in the United States, like current stats are like over 60% of people's food consumption is ultra processed, which means devoid of all nutrients. And it's just mind boggling. And it's like, okay, something as simple as a mineral in the morning and an electrolyte in the morning can make a rapid difference in how you feel, but may also help with cravings and all the other stuff.
Exactly. It actually happened to me because before I got remineralized, I had a lot of cravings. I wasn't like a candy eater, but I ate a lot of fruit. So I definitely craved sugar. And once I got mineralized, it was really interesting. I found myself like I'd go to the grocery store, I wouldn't even buy any fruit. I'd be like, that's interesting. Look at that. And we've heard it so many times from so many people that, one woman, she's really a sugar addict, and she was at a gathering and they're passing around the cake, and she's like passing her piece on. And she's like, I've never passed my piece of cake on, you know. Another woman called, who's a friend of my business partners, and she said, every night, every single night, I go and have my bowl of ice cream every night. And suddenly I realized I'd gone 3 days without having my bowl of ice cream. Like she just didn't even think of it. So that's the thing, we think of weight issues, and we think, you've got to be disciplined and you've got to turn over a new leaf, you got to be strong. And I'm like, what if you just have to be mineralized and those cravings would go away? What if?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I don't crave sweet things, but I do crave salty things. Like
Yes, that's
salt
the
is
other
salt
thing.
is my main drive.
So what does this
Right.
hungry cell crave? Sugar and salt. Those are the
Yeah.
two things, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So
That could very well
very
be that.
interesting.
Yeah. Could very well be. Could very well be. So, I believe we have links and everything in our show notes that we can send everybody. I believe that's right.
I'm sure we will. If you don't yet,
Yes.
you will.
Yes, we do. We do. We can send everybody to check out it's Beam Minerals. Um, B minerals. And like we said, there's several products. And like I said, have been a fan for a long time. I've been wanting to have you on the, look, when did we
Oh,
see each other again? It was like in May. And we're like, we got to connect and get to a podcast. And here we are
well,
months
and
later.
I love to mention that I have a book coming out from Hay House in the spring.
Okay.
And if people are interested in learning more about minerals, and there's a great reference section in there about, for different health issues that you might be having, and they can go to mineralresetbook.com. The book is
Okay.
called The Mineral Reset. So mineralresetbook.com and pre-order, and we'll send you a little download book that, to get you started before the book comes out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely have that in the show notes for sure and make sure that you have links so you can get the products and everything else. Carolyn, it has been fabulous talking to you. We could talk for hours.
Yes. I hope that you get your energy back after your early morning flight, and that we both go and have a little shot of electrolytes right now.
Exactly, exactly. I'm definitely going to do that. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Menopause Mastery.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to be here.
Awesome. And for everybody listening or watching, thank you. And if you are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, leave me a little comment. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, please leave us a review because that helps us help more people. And then I'll be back with you next week.